Hello, everyone. This is Eston. I wanted to continue our conversation that we had going about privilege in another earlier video, because I wanted to flesh out the topic of why people are afraid to. People seem to be afraid to acknowledge privilege. I know I originally was when I first understood about it. And I'll backtrack a little bit. On the previous video, I mentioned that, the first time I heard about privilege in the social justice context was through a friend in a group that I belonged to, and she ultimately left the group, and then she cut off all communication with everybody, and it boiled down to the fact that she felt like she wasn't valued, and that the group was being run by privileged white males. And I found out that she included me in that too, and was somewhat angry about that when I first heard about it. She had used the term privilege before in our group, so I had heard her say it, and I thought I was somehow exempt from that. And the reason, because I am white and male and cisgendered, but I am gay. So when I thought, surely, I just assumed that I was exempt since I was a minority, and I felt like, oh, I'd suffered too, at the hands of the patriarchy because of being gay. So I just dismissed having any privilege at all. I just assumed that this was something that was for straight white men. Well, and then so whenever she left the group and lumped me in with them as part of a privileged group, then I got angry about that, because I felt like she was devaluing my experience. And I then later came to understand, the broader, more detailed social justice context of privilege, and so I realized that I I did fit into privilege. Well, most people do, but that's sort of how I figured out what privilege was, or that's when I started to understand it more in context. But back to what I originally wanted to talk about, which was why I think people are afraid to acknowledge it. And I'll speak, I'm going to mainly just talk from my own perspective, since that's really the only experience I can really speak to, is that, everybody's got a creation myth about themselves. Like, I created myself. It's a creation story. It's an ongoing creation story. And it changes over time. And so everybody owns their own story, their own narrative, and they have a narrative about their life that they believe to be their story. And it's a very personal thing, and it's a very, deeply held emotional thing, our story. And so when someone challenges that story, when someone challenges that narrative, the first reaction is to become defensive. And then if you're challenged further, then, become angry. This is certainly what happened in my case. So I feel like that's where the block is a lot of times with people. Whenever privilege is brought up, they don't listen past it, because they feel like it's going to threaten my story, and I think they feel like it's going to devalue them somehow. That if they worked hard and became an entrepreneur and started a business and became successful and, have reached a point where they're very successful, their narrative is they worked very hard, and they probably did. So it's threatening then for someone to come along and say, yeah, but you had these doors open to you because of your race, or because of your sex, your gender, or your sexuality. And then that's threatening. But here's why I don't think it has to be necessarily. There's certain higher human emotions, that we could all agree on, love and freedom and these types of things. And one of the higher ones is gratitude. If you can feel that emotion of gratitude, it's just an expanding. It's a thing that expands your being. When you can just get absorbed in gratitude for the things that's happened to you, or those things that you have, or gratitude for your journey turning out the way that it did, or gratitude for any number of reasons. It's just one of those emotions that expand us, I think, is a good way of saying it. And if you acknowledge your privilege, what you're doing is you're acknowledging people. You're saying, yes, I have been successful. I worked really hard and became the person I am today. But you know what? I had this person open this door for me, and this person showed me where the door was. Then this person helped me, opened it for me. Or maybe another person, gave you the key to a gate. You might have had to find the gate, but the person gave you a key. I'm speaking, obviously abstractly, but you get what I mean. I mean, there were people that helped you on your journey. They helped you through some period in your life. They gave you good advice. They held you when you cried. They encouraged you when you felt discouraged. They made you feel valued. Or it could be a privilege component. They could have just outright given you the job, or took a chance on you when no one else did or would. But you can recognize that as a privilege. You can recognize that, and it doesn't diminish your story. It actually expands your story, because then your story is suddenly filled with all these people that did these things for you. Now, it's also understanding that some of these things happen to you because of who you were. Not just because of, you worked so hard, but it's understanding that the way that the world works, there were other people just as qualified as you who didn't get that door opened, who didn't get that key to the gate, who didn't get the directions, who didn't get the path cleared for them. Because they just didn't, because they didn't have those people appear in their life. As a matter of fact, they may have had obstacles appear in their life. They may have had people who, at the same time were handing me a key, were shutting the door on another person because of some factor. We've already talked about the various factors of privilege, people who are less privileged, groups who are less privileged than others. So I don't need to really go through those again, probably, but but recognizing this as part of your story, it doesn't diminish your own story in any way, shape, or form. But by recognizing that this did happen to you, and it might not have happened to another person in the same shoes as you, it's also a very empowering thing for you. For me, it was, because what it means is you can then recognize that this exists, that this system exists, where I didn't recognize this system existed before. So before I understood privilege, I didn't know the system existed. So since I didn't know the system existed, guess what? I was complicit to it. I was helping it along. But by recognizing it and owning it, then I actually have a say. I have a choice. I'm no longer complicit in it. I don't have to be a part of it. I can reject it. I might still get offered. I will, being a white male, I will get offered. I'll still be in the privileged group, but I don't have to perpetuate that. I myself won't perpetuate it. So when I am the person with the key, and I am the person clearing the path, and I am the person showing people, opening doors for people, and those happen not just with jobs, those happen in every aspect of life. I'm not going to do this based on this privilege system. I reject the privilege system. So I think that's very, very enriching. I think it expands our life. I think there's absolutely nothing to fear, people, and white men, I'm talking to you, being one of you. There's nothing to fear from acknowledging the privilege system in your own narrative. It doesn't diminish your story in any way, shape, or form. So I hope I've explained how I'm feeling about that. I feel like that was not that organized of a discussion, but if you have any thoughts about it, I'd love to continue the conversation with you. You can check out my blog at earnestlyeston.blogspot.com. I'll put the link in the details of this video. You can also find me over at Facebook at Earnestly Eston, or you can just leave a comment here. But, if you don't want to continue the conversation with me, talk among your friends or just have a dialogue with yourself. The important thing is to keep the conversation moving along. That's it for now. We'll check in with you with some more videos soon. More interesting discussions coming up, and hope to talk with you later. Bye.